distinguished professors, and dear students. As you may know, our graduation exercises are spread over 2 days, involving 2 sessions and 2 different speakers. Commencement, involving all formal diploma awards, is on a Saturday with a closing lecture delivered by an invited speaker decided by the university. But at the same time, the previous Friday evening, there is a first graduate address delivered by a faculty member elected by the graduating class. This then is the first occasion, and this year's graduate address will be delivered by Nursem Keskin Aksay of the İHÜMezuniyet University, Department of Sociology. Dr. Aksay did a double major in sociology and philosophy at Boğaziçi University, graduating with honors in 2009 and received a full scholarship from Koç University to do an MA in comparative studies in history and society. Finishing in 2012, the time she also worked as a lecturer and a research assistant in sociology, anthropology, and history. She then received her PhD from the Political and Social Sciences Department of Berlin Freie University with highest honors in 2007, on the basis of her thesis titled The Discursive Emergence of the Islamic Bourgeoisie and Middle-Class Veiled Muslim Women in Istanbul. While doing her doctoral research, she also taught courses on gender, class, the anthropology of Islam, urban anthropology, and secularism at Freie University, Hamburg University, and European University Viadrina. In 2015 and 2016, she worked as a research assistant and coordinator at Star University's Post-Colonial Studies Research Center. She has been a full-time faculty member at İHÜMezuniyet University since 2019, where she is currently Vice Chair of the Department of Sociology. Today, she will be talking to us about the cultural turn in social life. Dr. Aksay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. All respected rector, members of Board of Trustees, my valuable colleagues, and my dear graduate students. Actually, I would talk about today a very, let's say, complicated discussion, but which is very familiar to us. This will be about the actually cultural turn in the social life. You will see that this will be already having a kind of, let's say, the cultural turn in the social life is coming from my philosophical and, let's say, theoretical discussions. Okay. Sorry, there are some, like, I guess, technical issues always happening. Okay. Our title today is The Cultural Turn in Social Life. And today I will try to do something very hard, actually, because this became my ambition from the beginning of the years, that I was beginning my academic years with philosophy. And philosophy was most of the time very much loved kind of academic literature for me, but it was a kind of so much theoretical that I cannot have any practical or any kind of tangible discussions about society. That's why my social anthropological journey begins after that I just did a double major in sociology and philosophy together, and then I began to like get involved with much more cultural studies and much more interdisciplinary studies. That's why today I will discuss the a turn, which is cultural turn actually in social theory. It's a kind of social theoretical discussion actually in the literature, but it's also reflecting a substantive kind of, let's say, change and shift in the society. Because we are in a constant cultural kind of transformation, but it's already reflected in the literature. That's why today I begin to ask the question of culture. What is culture? That's why I said that it's already a complicated discussion, because culture is mostly for us a familiar and very much taken for granted kind of concept, but at the same time it is one of the very much, let's say, debatable concepts of social sciences for a long time. Okay, actually I have a definition for us here, but this is already one of the definitions, and the defining process is still ongoing. Okay, And here, actually, when we see that complex whole, which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by of society, here actually the knowledge, belief, art, morals are in a constant change as well. That's why it's also already shown that the culture itself is in a transformation process. Okay, what does it mean to us is, normally, as I said, in every sphere, in academia, in any kind of social, let's say, place, or in a workplace, in a kind of family environment, in a kind of institutional environment, actually we are all familiar with culture, but we are not speaking about it, or we are taking for granted it. That's why we are not so much, let's say, aware of this, let's say, positive and negative connotations of culture giving us together. Okay, that's why I will try to, let's say, problematize a bit. Actually, what do you understand by culture? Actually, where is culture? What we are talking about when we are saying culture? Okay, what's like, where is it? Whose culture we are talking about? For example, is the Indian culture is in India, or what it's like, or what is Turkish culture? What do you think about Turkish culture when we say Turkish culture? Okay, here the cultural turn in social theory is becoming like coming with this kind of questions to make you understand that how social life should be also questioned and, let's say, investigated again through this kind of questions. That's why actually the questioning is coming from the fact that, what about, like, let's say, the places of culture? As I said, is there a place of culture, or like how we are thinking about it? Okay, at the same time, what is the place of culture? The answer of this question, that is it a country? Is it like a heritage? Is it a history? Or can be a workplace or a university has a culture, like, or a cultural kind of production? And that's why it was also discussed that, like, most of the time, culture is involving some of the imagined communities and imagined places. In the sense that, like, we are mostly looking at this ideas of culture in a different sense. What we have here is actually a kind of scene from İHÜMezuniyet. That's why we will think about this whole process together. When we say that, or when we question that, what is the place of culture? Can we say that this university student in a cafeteria is making the culture itself? Or not? Or again, think about Ibn Khaldun culture. What is making Ibn Khaldun as an academic event? In sociology department? Or what else? Can be a speech director? Or like, which kind of practices and which kind of use of places are making more culture? I mean, maybe I have to remind you that why I am doing this discussion, and especially for graduate students, that I am trying to actually question your position in a place that, how it is related with your understanding of culture, but at the same time, it also creates some kind of inclusion and exclusion for you. That's why here, I mean, we will discuss a kind of cultural turn through an idea of what makes an university as a cultural kind of, let's say, place. Okay? Here we have, like, four main, let's say, center of the campus. Is it like part of the culture of the campus? I mean, like, invite people or spending time in the center of the, like, campus. Or, I mean, is Halil Hujaz, like, very, very kind of like cozy environment, or like building in the humanities? He's not happy with this picture, that's why. But like humanities and social sciences, I mean, when I just like pass by this room, I was always feeling some kind of productivity about academia, or some kind of cozy feeling, saying that we have to study, we have to do something in academia. Is it the culture of Ibn Khaldun? Or like my little daughter, is this the, like, representation of the campus. Should we include kids? Should we include more like places about the kids, or is an university can be represented through this like idea of, or it is a bit away from it? So should we exclude them or include them? Okay, I mean, actually, this social theoretical discussion was all about this tiny macro level, let's say, examples from our life. And of course, they are having much more, let's say, fancy words, academic words for it, saying that actually, let's say, cultural turning social and political theory is much more putting culture into the discussion of humanities and social sciences, and saying that how culture of the people or others are much more a kind of analytical category. That's why, actually, as I said, this cultural turn is a substantive shift in the social world and in social life, but at the same time, it's an analytical shift in theory. Okay, why? Because they were changing their analytical categories in doing research, mostly doing academic research, and they begin to put culture in the center. But as I said, this is problematic in the sense that we could not even define culture. Okay, there are so many problematic discussions. That's why they were trying to say that, again, we have to look at deeper meaning and understanding of culture then. And think about your life, and think about our life, and think about, let's say, as a graduate student, as a person, as an academic here in the university, that you always have some feelings and understanding about your culture. Mostly this is a kind of, let's say, feeling that you embrace it, you take it for granted it. For example, as I said, it can be related with Ottoman Empire for a person from Turkey. It can be related to different heritages. But we are mostly not talking about it as a kind of analytical category because it's already embedded in our daily life and social life. Okay? Here, that's why we are mostly beginning in social theory to think about culture in a critical way. In a critical way that, what kind of knowledge cultures can create? Okay? What kind of exclusion and inclusion mechanism they can have? Because as I said, this is an embracing kind of term for us, that this is my food, this is my dress, this is my folkloric dances, this is my identity, this is my place, this is my country. You can just make it more and more. But what kind of meanings attributed to this kind of cultural embracement of these people? Okay, this is very important because in so many senses we are not aware of this, let's say, cultural matrix we are creating, and who is outside and who is inside. Okay, that's why actually I am talking about this issue in an interdisciplinary manner, that every person in the social life, even you are graduating, like the students are graduating now, after they graduate, for example, they will be in a workplace. They will be, I don't know, economists. They will be political scientists. They will be a CEO. They will be an economist. But in every space you are in, there are this kind of discussions. These are not unique, isolated discussion of social theory. You have to always think about yourself in a in a sense that what kind of cultural preservation you have, and how you are excluding or including someone or something or some object, some context. Okay, that's why the main discussion and main questioning of this cultural turn is focusing on this, let's say, articulation of work, how it works. Okay, at the same time, how it is structured, like the society itself is structured. And at the same time, it is in aiming a kind of thick description that deeply engaging with this societies and social life, and understand that what kind of meanings are attributed to, let's say, for a profession, or what does it mean to be an academic in Turkey, or what does it, as I said, what does it mean to have a university atmosphere. Okay, maybe you can also relate it that what kind of campuses are like making students feel in a certain way, and what kind of other places are making them feel in a different way. Okay, and what is your role in this space? Actually, mostly, what is your role? How you are contributing, or how you are like contributing to the knowledge making, but at the same time, how you are changing it. Are you changing it, or are you have a say to it? Okay, I mean, are you maybe like purposefully or not excluding kids from the environment, anyone from the environment? Okay, I mean, these are all much more embedded in our understanding of culture. Okay, this is the aim of this like theoretical discussion as well. That's why, like, we are mostly not talking about um, when we are talking about culture, when we are not always talking about culture as a cultural event, or culture as a behavior only, or as a like food, but mostly as a context. Okay, context, having interactions, having feelings, having emotions, having practices, and maybe resistance as well, other kind of different relations and power relations as well. And actually, this all critical, let's say, discussion of culture coming from like let's say, 60s and 70s, like mostly as an increasing kind of movement, bringing also the special turn and affective turn. What are they? Mostly they are saying that, for example, the architecture of university. I mean, think about Ibn Haldun. How we just have a kind of architecture here. Actually, it's also reflecting the motto of the Ibn Haldun. Okay, because we were thinking of the merging between East and West, how we can bring the traditional one, but also, let's say, have this modern and new ideas also involved. Okay, that's why so many different cultural and civilizational backgrounds are reflecting onto the architecture of the university. Okay, this means that we are already having a kind cultural materiality in front of us, saying something to us about this inclusion and exclusion. But all these other dimensions are depending on the practices and experiences of the academics of the university, the, let's say, management part of the university, and mostly the students' role is very important. For example, this campus is also already a new campus, and that means that we are using it very newly. Okay, I will come to this point at the end of my presentation, but what is the contribution of the students to the idea of making this campus as a campus? Okay, useful or for their purposes or for their understanding, how they are just, let's say, having a say on it. This is very much important. And that's why, for example, the architecture and the materiality of the space is much more important. At the same time, the emotions. Emotions are, like, for a long time, have been excluded from social discussions and social theory discussions. Why? Because they were much more seen as the job of this positivistic or objectivist kind of like sciences, psychology, and the others. Why? Because it was always seen that it's about inside of the person. But actually, this architecture even can give us a feeling or a kind of, let's say, as I said, when I was passing by Halil Hoca's room, this gives me a kind of academic feeling. What does it mean? Okay, with this cultural turn, already the literature begin to discuss this special and affective turn. Okay, what kind of effects we have in the social life and how it is like, let's say, directing us in behaving in the daily life. Okay, from here, actually, this main motto of this discussion was mostly making the strange familiar and the familiar strange. Okay, I mean, what does it mean? Like, but at the same time, Berger was already saying that, actually pointing out the cultural transformation, the familiar now seems not quite so familiar anymore. What does it mean? actually we are not aware of the fact that this familiar, taken for granted things are changing already all the time. But we are taking them and preserving them as familiar, but maybe this is not the case. And the cultural turn in theory can be discussed in so many ways, and I can give you so many philosophers' names and we can discuss them deeply. But what does it mean in our daily life? In a, let's say, master degree student's life, in any kind of environment. It means that mostly you have to think about the strange in your familiarity always. To have a much more just, maybe equal and much more balanced life in terms of excluding or including anything from your life, consciously or unconsciously, or intentionally or unintentionally. Okay? That's why I will talk about a bit the much more debatable, let's say, part of it, in a sense that how the first cultural discussion begins. Actually, so many social cultural anthropologists begin to discuss the idea of culture in the beginning of 20th century, I would say, by criticizing the mostly colonial kind of acts, in which that the colonial, let's say, practices are mostly based on defining a culture of the other and redefining and reproducing their own culture upon this definition. Okay, that's why most of the time anthropologists are working on this issue through a post-colonial also critic that mostly the colonial idea on culture, like the anthropologist was mostly defining the culture of the other in a sense that this is, for example, any kind of other. This is the uncivilized one because the white man's burden is mostly bringing the old one to the civilized one. And this is already related with a hegemonic culture idea. I don't want to get involved, of course, Gramsci's theoretical discussions, but the cultural hegemony itself is created by some power relationships, always. And which means that the colonizer power already describing the culture of the other as uncivilized, maybe not negative words from the beginning, maybe, but uncivilized or need some saving or unmodern or traditional. And then all this justification begins by excluding some cultural elements from their own culture. What was the first thing? The colonizers arrived to the spaces like Africa or United States, and indigenous, they begin to let's say, observe the indigenous people. What was the first thing? Confrontation, difference. Yes, they are very different than us. Okay, they are having this. Their skin color is different. Okay, then they begin to describe these cultural differences in a sense of hierarchical and power-based dimension, and they begin to create their own knowledge about these cultures, which means that this was creating these, let's say, European or Western. I am saying it always in quotation marks because these are debatable. Where is Europe? Where is European culture? But at the same time, in discursive level, they were creating the white European or Western kind of culture through this kind of narratives. And what was happening is this. Actually, this is 1958. Very, very, very kind of close history, I would say. This is a World Fair in Brussels, and they were actually having African, let's say, people to present the others to show them their culture, how they are different, okay, how they are much more, let's say, different than us, different eating habits, have different eating habits than us, or different skin color, or okay. I think this is also related with more macro level discussions. Okay, I jumped from this historical discussion of colonization into this kind of like neoliberal and capitalism discussion, for example. What is this? This is a kind of, let's say, resistance poster by some activists against actually a mediator company of Apple and HP. They are having so many factories in the, let's say, third uncivilized world or civilization of the world, actually countries. And actually there, 10 workers or like 18 workers committed suicides by jumping from the roof of the factory because of the working conditions of this company actually. But mostly this is part of our new culture. Apple or new computers, technology. Okay? I'm not talking about this all, let's say, like burdens we have that we have to use some of these tools. We have to use some of digitalization and technology, but still we have to be aware of the fact that what kind of exclusion or inequalities or injustices it can happen through this kind of knowledge making. Okay? And that's why actually the micro kind of discussions of our daily life, which is mostly familiar to us, are not sometimes so much innocent, maybe, in terms of exclusion and inclusion. But this is very much hard to, like, let's say, to be aware of, because this is, as I said, embedded into your daily life and mostly in our lives. Like, we are behaving in a certain way that we are even not thinking that this is our culture. Think about yourself. Are you saying that, yes, I am eating this food because this is my part of my culture? No. Most of the time, it's becoming a kind of way that you are accustomed and taken for granted for you. Okay? I mean, here, I think this discussion is how we would rethink about our position within our culture. As I said, as a graduate student, as a kind of professional, let's say, officer or professional kind of CEO, academic, a kind of regular BA student, or any kind of lay person in the streets, how will think about this kind of relations? Because, as I said, I mean, I'm trying to make it much more softer in a sense, but this all discussion of colonization and all discussion of this micro to macro is all related with social stratification and inequality and injustice, actually. Why? Because, as we saw, the colonization already related with this, let's say, power mechanism that who can become the slave and who can become the master. But at the same time, all social class, race, ethnicity, and gender issues are all segregated and like constructed in a way of stratification and hierarchy, and sometimes with dominant hegemonies based on this knowledge. Okay, what we are saying here is not the fact that like culture is the responsible here. No, what I am trying to say is like the culture is, as we maybe remember the first definition we are giving, is in a constant change that even we cannot recognize, and which is very familiar to us that we cannot even think that it can be creating some, let's say, approaches which can create inequality, which can create injustice. But this is not the, let's say, essential like role or culture, but this is how the understanding of culture and the practices of culture can create. Okay, I mean, what can we do? This is maybe the discussion. Actually, I already started in between that, like, actually we have to firstly recognize our position in this cultural social life. Okay, and maybe not as a theoretician, but as a kind of daily life based person of the social life, we have to, let's say, first the question our position in the social space. Okay, who I am. Mostly I am doing it in my classes, and students are having like a shock, saying that, okay, why you are in university, and at the same time I am asking further. I mean, do you know that we already have a power relation between us? Like, what does it mean that I mean, I am not necessarily maybe intending it or want to do it, but it's already the public, let's say, organization of a class is giving this relation. Are you aware of the fact that what does it mean to be a student in a public university? What does it mean to be an academic? What kind of relation we have? Or actually we were discussing, and even like before the lecture we were discussing, and I was several times with my coffee everywhere. I was like asking sometimes, what does it mean to have your coffee with you, let's say, as an academic when you are speaking? Actually, I would say that, of course, there are different kind of explanation and analysis we can do, but this is mostly related with a kind of, let's say, North American and European academic kind of background, which have this all academic discussions with related with coffees in hands and having discussions. Okay, which means that I have maybe a cultural kind of reflection on me through these experiences of like North American and European academic background, even in Turkey and even abroad. And mostly we were in this way. Okay, I mean, even this makes it's very obvious that what kind of, let's say, cultural hegemony you were in and how you are bringing it with you. Okay, I mean, for some of my colleagues, it's also a joke. Yes, Nursem Hoca again with the coffee. Okay, and maybe it can be seen as very Eurocentric. Okay, but it gives you have to question yourself, your body. I am also questioning myself and my body all the time. Okay, which means that then you can maybe understand that how I am excluding something or someone or some like issues. Okay, as I said, what we can do is we have to recognize our position and we have to recognize the other's position. At the same time, we have to recognize the power relations around us. But we have to also involve and try to contribute. What can be the contribution and how it can be? Actually, as like before I will be going to this, like again another example from this like history of Turkey and history of, let's say, United States and Europe, that like this old certification is also reflecting on the daily life in this way. This is also based on a like cultural hegemony discussion, because even it was a ban in 1870, like 1978, still a veiled body is not always so much acceptable in some districts of Turkey, for example, or in some cities of Turkey, or in some districts of Istanbul. You can get some reactions. But at the same time, like even in 1950s, the like other races were already separated and excluded because of all reasons. Okay? That's why I think we have to understand that, like, what is the, for example, position of a veiled woman in an university? What is the position of a, like, black person in the United States? Still, you know it, like very recently. We have the black women, still they don't have any solution for this exclusion and racism in the United States. What is this? Okay? This is the, like, last thing that, which is also reflecting what we can do. Okay, I mean, metaphorically, this is actually giving us that what we can do. Even sometimes practicing and experiencing is giving your position. I mean, I like this example to give it in my ethnography of space and place courses as well, because actually this is showing that how the students themselves, by their practices, change the university campus itself. Okay, this is from the Ibn Khaldun University and campus. Like this is the, as some of you know, this is the in front of the cafeteria area. There are some like trees we have, very nice trees we have. And this was the first time after the pandemic I was in the campus, and I was so happy that it was green and etc. And actually there were no students because the pandemic was like not ended for them, but some academics were coming to the like campus. Nobody was using the campus. Then what happens? The semester begins and they begin to come to campus, and the dorm were full. The dormitory were full and like was full. And then at the same time, the whole students were going at least 3 times to cafeteria in a day. And what were they doing? Actually, some of you know, but this is the way that, like, this part is the front of the cafeteria, and this is the way coming from the dorm. And actually, we have a like way that which is a bit like longer, and interestingly, like turning the corner, actually to go for cafeteria. What did the students? Students use the grasses to make a short, let's say, roadway for them, for themselves. And what happened? Actually, there's an example like this in Berkeley University. Mostly when they are doing the architecture and they are making this, let's say, a garden paysage and the garden like structure, they were saying that no, we will not do it now. We will do it after the students and the people using it. Actually, we did it in a certain way that then the rectorate decided to do a way there because it became already a road and path for them. But then it suddenly became, by the decision of the management as well, a kind of new road and path. Okay? This is what actually I want to say about this. Like, as I said, with this cultural turn, everything in your life, your experiences, practices, new way of looking at life, or shortcuts, I don't know, I'm going to cafeteria in a short way, or having a kind of new, let's say, socialization environment with you and with students can change the specialty itself, the reality itself, and the imagination itself. And even the management or the policy making can be related with it. And then we have the path. You can go and see. I mean, this is a kind of very much a collaboration or a like engagement and negotiation way of having the students with management. Maybe we didn't do it by purpose, but this is what I am talking about, okay? What is your place? How you can change it? Who can you can include, yani who can be included by you? Who are excluded because of your cultural understanding? Okay? That's why what I will end is, like I already decided, but try to look at the strange, like try to look at this whole social life to make the strange familiar, and most importantly, the familiar strange. Thank you very much. Hakan, gidebiliyor muyum?